Today we're talking about my best shoes of 2024. Let's do it. Good morning, YouTube. What's up, everybody? Hope you're safe and healthy and happy and doing okay. And most importantly, I hope you had a nice holiday, whatever you celebrate with your family and friends. As 2024 comes to an end, you know that it's usually the time where these channels put out their best shoes of the year or their best gear of the year, and this channel is no different. Today we're going to be talking about my best shoes of 2024. Now, a couple things to keep in mind before we get started on this. These are just the shoes that I tried, so there might be shoes off this list that other channels said were the best shoes of 2024, and it might just be that I didn't try that shoe. Also, this ranking is just my opinion. This is not based on anything else other than what shoes I liked the most, what I gravitated towards most in 2024, and that's just what we're going off of. So if your list is different, that is completely fine. You will have a chance to let me know your list of favorite shoes down in the comments below as well. 2024 for me in terms of running was a lot less crazy than 2023, certainly a little bit less mileage. I wasn't training for a marathon or anything like that. I did have a 10-mile race that I did a training block for in April. So I did compete a little bit this year, but mostly I ran just because I felt like it, just because I wanted to, and because I enjoy running, and kind of took a lot of the competitive aspect out of it after April. I think the fact that I took it a little bit easier can be reflected or correlated to some of the shoes I picked for each category. But there were a lot of great shoes in 2024, and this was a hard list to make, as it always is. Before we get started on my favorite shoes of 2024, I do want to ask that if you're not subscribed to this channel, if you could please go and do so. It just helps me to continue making these videos. And if one video a week on YouTube is not enough for you, then go follow me on Instagram as well. At Run Like Heller is my handle, and I'm just posting a little bit more shoe content there, running content, live content, all that kind of stuff. So like last year, we're gonna break this down into categories. We're gonna talk about super shoes, we're gonna talk about daily trainers, super trainers, and max cushion shoes as the categories. And I also have another category this year that I'm adding, and I haven't really workshopped the name yet, but I think it's gonna be like best breakout shoe or best shoe from a new brand. So we're gonna talk about that as well. And before we get started, again, I do wanna just say that the majority of these shoes were sent to me by the brands themselves. However, they're not gonna see this video before you. They can't tell me what to say, and all of my opinions, as always, are completely my own. So let's start with the best breakout shoe of 2024. And for me, that was the Mount to Coast R1. When Mount to Coast reached out to me, I was a little bit skeptical, or kind of had like low expectations of what the shoe might feel like. The first shoe that they sent me was the R1. That's what we have right here. And this was by far the best shoe that I got from them so far. And it's also just an incredible shoe on its own. What I like so much about the R1 is that it's lightweight. The foam is very versatile, so you can really pick up the pace in this shoe and feel like you're getting that turnover going, but you can also do your easy, like run-of-the-mill mileage in it. The upper is very breathable and comfortable. The laces had no problem staying tied. And another great thing about this shoe is that the traction on the outsole is very good as well. So honestly, an all-around great shoe, a great debut shoe for Mount to Coast, and it made me really excited to see what else the brand will be coming out with in 2025. All right, so now let's move on to my favorite super shoes of 2024, starting with my runner-up, the ASICS Metaspeed Edge Paris. So the Metaspeed Edge came at a perfect time for me. It was when I was training for the Cherry Blossom 10 miler, and I really wanted a good shoe from ASICS because I was running with them for this race, but it was great because I actually happened to love the shoe. At the same time, ASICS had also released the Metaspeed Sky Paris, but I gravitated towards the Edge, much to my surprise. The reason I was surprised about that is because I think it's the more aggressive of the two, but I did a lot of training for the Cherry Blossom 10 miler in this shoe, and I also ran the Cherry Blossom 10 miler in the Metaspeed Edge Paris. This is a fantastic super shoe that is absolutely gonna torpedo you forward when you get that turnover going. It's like you go on cruise control. The only issue that I had with it, and the reason why it's not my #1 super shoe, is because it was a little bit unstable at times, and my feet did feel a touch sore after that 10 miler. Just because of that, I docked it down to runner up, but it's still a really fantastic super shoe that I feel like is almost kind of underrated. But my favorite super shoe of 2024 was the New Balance SC Elite V4. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't race in this shoe in 2024, but I did a ton of mileage in it nonetheless. Lots of tempo work. I did many long runs in this shoe and even took it out for like run-of-the-mill everyday mileage. And I just love the fact that it was so comfortable. The platform isn't really narrow, so you are getting a touch more stability in this shoe than you do something like the Metaspeed Edge. The foam is soft, but it still maintains that characteristic of response and bounce and energy that you need from a super shoe. And that plate goes into overdrive when you need it to. I just found myself wanting to grab this shoe so much. And it's possible, had I done a marathon in 2024, that I would probably have worn the SC Elite V4. And this particular colorway is an absolute home run. Now, I have one more shoe to talk about in the super shoe category. In the past, I have talked about the fact that there are super shoes, like the carbon plated racers, and then there are like crazy carbon plated shoes like the Adidas Prime X Strung. But also another brand decided to dip their toe into the crazy super shoe pond this year, and that was Hoka with the Cielo X1. This was another shoe that I was a little bit skeptical about when I first saw it. The upper looked like a nightmare to me. The midsole seemed like it was going to be super unstable for my foot, but it really caught me by surprise. There's just so much foam under your foot here that it feels like you're running on a trampoline. I will be honest, this shoe and the feeling of this shoe is not going to be for everybody, but it was definitely for me, and this is my list, so I'm throwing it on here. But they're gonna be for the runner who wants the latest technology, the most innovative thing, and sometimes, I'll be honest, I like that kind of thing, and I absolutely loved the Cielo X1 because of that. Now let's move on to the next category, my favorite daily trainers of 2024. Starting with my runner-up, the New Balance Balos. And yes, I have compared this shoe to some other Max Cushion shoes that I've had this year, but when I think about it, I feel like this is a more fancy, sort of beefier daily trainer. So what sets the Balos apart from the other daily trainer, the 1080 that New Balance makes, is that this Fresh Foam X is blended with a PIBA, and that's what I loved so much about this shoe. The PIBA is really a game changer to me in this midsole. You don't lose any of that cushion and protection that the Fresh Foam X provides in something like the 1080, but what you do get is an elevated feeling than the 1080 because of that PIBA. So now you're getting even more bounce and elasticity, a more responsive, energetic ride that I certainly noticed. And I mean, I couldn't get enough of the feeling of this foam under my foot. It feels pretty lightweight. It's got a nice breathable upper. I think the reason why it's not my favorite shoe of 2024 in terms of daily trainers is because I feel with time the foam has flattened a tad. The outsole is not the best in terms of durability. Otherwise though, New Balance hit it out of the park with this shoe. If you gave me the choice between forever running in the Balos or forever running in the 1080, it would be an absolute no-brainer. I would pick the Balos every single time. But my favorite daily trainer of 2024 came as a huge surprise to me, and that is the ASICS Novablast 5. I've had mixed feelings about the last couple models of the Novablast. It was trending upward for the 4 and I liked it, but here, this is what I've kind of been looking for. It's still very much a standard daily training feel, which I think is a good thing because this is certainly going to give you the mileage, you know, and the durability that you need. You can throw this on, go do your 5-mile run at whatever pace you feel like that day. You can take this out on a 10 to 20-mile run, absolutely no issues. But it does have a little bit of pep in its step for when you want to pick up that pace, and it feels a little bit more magical than I'd say the 4 did, but it also feels a bit more balanced. One of the complaints I had about the Novablast 4 was that I feel like there wasn't as much foam in the forefoot as there was in the heel. Here I think they distributed it like nicely. It feels a bit more even. So that just added to how much I liked this shoe. I would highly recommend the Novablast 5 to anybody really, any skill level of running, someone who is very seasoned or someone who is getting out there for the first time. I really feel like this is the daily trainer of the year. Okay, so now let's move on to another favorite category of mine, the super trainers. Now we talked about super shoes earlier, those were the carbon racers, but super trainers, and I think that term was coined by Believe in the Run, but they're buds, so I'm going to use it. The super trainers are really those daily trainers that have like a plate in them or a fancy foam. So they are a little bit more versatile. They're meant for those tempo days, but you can also do some daily training work in them and still be comfortable. So my runner up in this category is the Hoka MachX 2. The funny thing about that is I think the MachX was my runner-up in this category last year, and here they are again as the runner-up. I really liked this shoe though, and I thought it was a big improvement over the first version of it. The upper was very comfortable and snug on the top of my foot. I got a nice wraparound feel from it. I felt like this Peba foam that sat under your foot just felt better than the first version. I was getting more response from it, felt like it was a bit faster. And the geometry of the shoe felt a little bit better as well. I was able to get up on my toes easier, and the shoe just felt faster to me. The one flaw though that this shoe had, and it didn't really impact me, but I could absolutely see someone having an issue with it. In fact, I heard from many of you who did have an issue with it, and that is the fact that there is absolutely no cushion around this ankle collar. There is some inside there, but honestly, it's just not enough, and I heard of way too many people getting a bloody Achilles or ankle issue because of this ankle collar construction. To be honest though, if Hoka fixes this for 2025, then maybe the MachX will finally be the #1 shoe in this category. So the winner of the super trainer category is the Nike ZoomFly 6. I did not think that this shoe was going to rank this high in my best of for 2024. I've only tried one other ZoomFly. I did like it, but I have heard very mixed things about the ZoomFly line over the years, especially about the ZoomFly 5, which was the predecessor to this one, the 6 right here. My expectations were maybe a little low for this one because of that, but boy, it blew me out of the water. This is what I wanted a lot of the super trainers to feel like that I have tried over the course of this year. First things first, you have an upper that mimics like a daily trainer without being too bulky. So they really did a nice balance here of like a racing flat upper, but giving you some of those daily trainer characteristics to make it more durable and more comfortable for longer mileage. What I liked so much about it, as you probably guessed, is the way the midsole feels. You have a nice layer of ZoomX right under your foot, and I'm sure many of you, if you're watching this, have tried ZoomX, so you know the magic of it. And then just to firm it up to make the shoe more stable and more versatile, they added a layer of what they're calling SRO2 foam. Once you pick up the pace, that carbon plate comes to life and you just feel like you can really fly. And not to mention, it has fantastic traction. This was almost my favorite shoe of the year. Almost was, but that shoe's coming soon. It didn't quite beat out the shoe that we're going to talk about in a little bit, but I would say this is the #2 pick for shoe of the year. And that brings me to my final category for 2024, and that is max cushion shoes. All year long, I've sounded like a broken record telling you guys that I have been running predominantly easy mileage, just running for fun, doing what I do, not caring about pace. And the Max Cushion shoes are exactly what the doctor has ordered for that sort of running. So we'll talk about my runner-up, and then we will talk about my favorite Max Cushion shoe of the year, which is also my favorite shoe of the year. So the runner-up in the Max Cushion category is the Brooks Glycerin Max. It was a no-brainer. I had to try it. I was so hyped for this shoe, and it did not disappoint at all. I absolutely love it. From the triple layer engineered mesh to the DNA tuned midsole. I mean, look at this midsole. To the tremendous amounts of rubber on the outsole. It's just as max as you're going to get, and it's the ultimate feeling on your foot. The upper is extremely comfortable. There's no ground feel with this midsole at all. You couldn't be more protected from the road. It's a cushioned feeling, but it's not a sloppy feeling. Just absolutely crushes and destroys miles upon miles. It's just gonna be so incredibly durable. It is a tank of a shoe. The only reason why it is not the #1 Max Cushion shoe is because it's a little bit heavy and the upper is a touch thick. This is my favorite Brooks shoe by a country mile in the last couple of years. So if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it, but you might want to stick around to find out what my favorite Max Cushion shoe is of 2024. And it is also my favorite shoe. So let's get into that right now. The #1 Max Cushion shoe and the #1 shoe for me in 2024 is the ASICS Superblast 2. The Superblast 2 was everything and more that I needed in 2024. First of all, the upper is lightweight, but it still maintains a nice fit and structure to it, so you get a great wrap around feel in the midfoot. And the combination of the two foams here in the midsole was just amazing. You have the Flight Foam Turbo Plus, a big chunk of it here, and that's their more premium foam, so it's kind of like that race day foam, but they added a sliver of the Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco to it to give you some more structure and durability, which we've been talking about a lot here today. So while this shoe is supposed to be kind of for those easier, longer mileage days, it doesn't necessarily feel like it because you got so much super foam here and exciting feel under your foot at every step. So I really appreciated that from the Superblast. It made those easier, kind of boring, air quote, miles that you run on an everyday basis feel not so boring anymore and quite enjoyable. And I felt like the rubber was pretty good. It has just enough of it, and man, they managed to do this in a pretty lightweight feeling package. I mean, if you feel the Glycerin Max and the Superblast together in hand, I mean, this really feels quite heavy compared to the Superblast. It really spoke to the journey I was on as a runner in 2024. I love the first Superblast, so make no mistake, this wasn't a surprise to me that I would like this, but I think I was surprised at just how much I ended up liking it. So for that reason, the ASICS Superblast 2 is my top shoe of 2024, and that concludes the list. So if you're interested in picking up any of these shoes, I will link them all in the description of this video so you can click on those links and pick up your own pair. Keep in mind the majority of these links will be from Running Warehouse, affiliate links. It doesn't mean much for you, it just helps out my channel so I can keep making these videos. Let me know in the comments what your favorite shoes were for 2024. Are any of them on this list? Or is my list complete BS and you have a new list entirely? Let me know. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Well, everyone, that concludes this video on the best shoes of 2024. If you enjoyed it, please like it down below and subscribe. And when you're done with all that, hit the notifications bell so you can find out every time I upload a new video. Craziest looking shoe, by far. I have another video for you next week, but in the meantime, get out there, get on the grind, and don't forget to run like heller. See you next time. And Happy New Year!